Hello and welcome to SPSS Class 2 from part S29. So we're going to draw this, these line graphs, and line graphs in SPSS are something different, so we're going to actually draw scatter graphs. Chart Builder makes it quite awkward, or very awkward actually to this, so we're going to use the legacy dialog scatter dot like that down there, and it's an overlay scatter that we need because we want more than one line. You need an overlay scatter. Here it's a slightly old-fashioned interface. You have to have X variable as year and Y variable as the thing you want to look at. So I'm going to start with GDP. So if I select year and GDP and press that, I get put into place there. I've got to use this to switch them around. So I have year on the X-axis, and then I want year again and the other GDP, the Vietnam one. I've got to switch that around as well. And that's it, and then you press OK. That should bring you some sort of graph. Yeah. Let's graphs, and let's do the others. Actually, let's answer question 8 for a start. How have the income levels in these countries changed over the past 30 years? Well, 30 years ago, Vietnam and Tanzania had really similar. In actual fact, Tanzania was slightly ahead, over 500, and Vietnam was behind that in terms of living standards, income per person. But since then, Tanzania's made a lot of progress. It's now a middle-income country, over $1,000 per year per person. But look at Vietnam has done more than twice that. So the pace of economic growth and therefore material living standards for people has been much faster in terms of economic development in the last 30 years. So that's quite clear from that picture. So it's just to repeat the same thing for the two health variables. And we can do that quite easily. And I can do it. The health variables are life expectancy and birth in Tanzania. That's that one. They're in the wrong order for some reason. Just drop it on top, and it usually replaces it quite nicely like that. And in Vietnam, there. Let's draw it again. So this is life expectancy. And you can see that again, life expectancy in both countries has gone up, though it's lower all the way in Tanzania. Slightly catching up towards the end. You can see it as the question says there. There's some strange things going on here. The dips here. What caused this dip here? If you want to pause and think about it, or look up, or think back on history, is that there was something called the global debt crisis, the oil crisis in the late 70s, the cessation of aid, for sort of conflicts in some parts of Africa. Towards the end of the 70s, mid 80s, into the 90s, severe economic hardship caused by this severe bite of the debt crisis, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Tanzania was very badly affected by that. So life expectancy actually went down from that mid-early 80s and until it started to pick up again with a recovery towards 2000. So that's why there's a down dip, which is really unusual to see a down dip in life expectancy. And then Vietnam, even more striking. Of course, Vietnam was caused by the Vietnam War from sort of mid-60s onwards. And that had such a dramatic effect on the life expectancy of young people at that stage. So that comes out in the data very visibly, both those effects. The other health variable we can look at data for is, I think, hopefully not quite as dramatic, but which one's that one? That's the Vietnam one. It's gone there. And the other one's the Tanzanian one. Goes on there, and here comes the graph. Yeah, so I mean, it's a positive thing in both cases going down. Starting from a higher level in Tanzania of over 125 deaths per 1,000 live births, well over 10% of infant mortality back in the mid-60s, down to far lower levels now, sort of below 50, still high, and Vietnam below 25. Still tragically high, but decreasing over time, and decreasing quite quickly as well, and converging, those two countries. And then finally the poverty levels one. Yeah, when we do the poverty levels one, as it says in the hint, I think I put a hint in the instructions, you get some problems if you don't. You just have a quick look at the, oh, I can't look at the data. If you look back at the data, it's because that the poverty, there's loads and loads of gaps in the data, and also the gaps don't line up. So one country might have a gap where the other one's got data, and there's so few years when they've both got data that it just gives up on drawing the graph, unless you go to the options here. Oops. And this is what we usually use it list-wise, just you do variable by variable. So if one country's got data on something and the other country hasn't, don't just draw it anyway. Just draw everything. Don't worry about gaps. So hopefully that will rescue the graph from not being drawn at all. But still you can see it's a bit limited because there's only a few data points. No measurements of poverty in those two countries incredibly into the 80s, at least not on the WDI, just from all recent years. You can see that in both cases it's coming down quite dramatically in Vietnam. And I mean, in terms of the $1 or the $1.90 per day, down to negligible levels almost. Well, nothing's negligible, but very low levels. Tanzania is still above 40% of people living on $1.90 a day. So severe rural, particularly rural poverty still in the country, despite the general economic performance being good. Not filtering through to all the people, unfortunately. Okay, so that's what you can do with some line charts by analysing trends over time, and that's time series analysis, where you're looking at just one or two variables over a long period of time, just for a couple of countries. So small focus, but over a long period of time, so you can really see the trends that are happening and trying to compare those between different cases. Then we're going to switch to the opposite in a minute. We'll be looking at one point at a time, but looking at a whole bunch of different countries. We'll do that in the next section. For now, thank you for watching.